Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. 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 Parrot TV.
Welcome to World Inkers Network, a Parrot TV program. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. And today we have Alex S. Johnson and Alea Celeste Williams. Both are excellent writers in their own right, and also doing multiple anthologies and multiple works out there, putting them in there for charities. And we're going to talk with them about their collaborations as well as their own select works. And so I'm going to bring Alex on the show here and have him tell us about your projects you're working on. Just let us know what kind of new works we can expect in the coming future.
Oh my God, Dustin! I mean, people are just going to be if you're a fan of, whether you're a fan of music, say of bands like Black Sabbath. A lot of people, a lot of your viewers are fans of Black Sabbath, Bauhaus, David Bowie. And next year we're doing a Pink Floyd book. So one of the really cool things that we do, because I'm a music journalist, I'm probably predominantly a music journalist. I started out my journalism career writing for magazines and interviewing people like Roz Williams, who was the founder of the band Christian Death, and very groundbreaking band for death rock. I guess Roz would call it death rock as opposed to, say, goth, which was more on the British end of things. And since I was always grew up listening to Black Sabbath, David Bowie, Bauhaus, these bands were sort of my lifeline, I think, and also Motorhead was a huge, for me, it was these bands kind of kept me going. And so when I was in when I was in college, when I was going to UC Davis, I'm an alumnus of UC Davis, and I studied comparative literature. So I got my BA in comparative literature, which is, as the name suggests, you study primary language and a secondary language. Your primary language can be any language, including English. Your other language has to be obviously a foreign language to English. And so I chose initially German and French and English, and then I sort of pared it down to just the French. And there we have the lovely and brilliant Alea Celeste Williams.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. Wow.
I'm sorry.
The show today.
Yeah. Wow.
Quite
So,
all right.
Me and my havoc hands over here.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Got it figured out finally.
Dustin was just asking about some of the projects we've got going, and I was just sort of explaining the genesis of why we're doing these music, these music and band tribute anthologies, such as White on White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus, as well as Moon Dust Will Cover You, a literary tribute to David Bowie. And next year we're doing did I forget Hand of Doom, a literary tribute to Black Sabbath? Did I mention that? I may have mentioned
about the title, but you did mention the band is doing a tribute to the band.
Yes, and that is for charity. So there's a whole lot to talk about. including,
Mm-hmm.
The William S. Burroughs tribute anthology, which we're going to be putting out this by the end of the month. There's so much goodness. And so, so really what I founded Nocturnicorn Books back in 2015 to sort of capitalize on the fact that I'm not only an editor, and I edited the New York Times bestseller called Seeing Lessons by a guy named Tom Sullivan, who was a collaborator with Betty White. And that's a really interesting story in and of itself, how I got started. He basically was a mentor to me, and he gave me a chance to edit what became a New York Times best-selling memoir. And he was a guy who was blind since birth, and he overcame a lot of challenges with the help of people like Helen Keller, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King Jr., and then later on, because he became a sort of a journalist as well as an actor, as well as a musician, kind of did it all, went to Harvard, graduated from Harvard, and became a sort of also motivational speaker. He was in movies like Airport 77. He had a recurring roles in Highway to Heaven, as well as MASH. And so but he did it all despite the fact he doesn't have any eyes, and at all. I mean, he never could see. So I can only imagine that he had to completely compensate for the fact that he doesn't have eyes at all. He doesn't have any visual memories. Okay, and I have a disability. It's called dyscalculia, which is a specific learning disability that affects my ability to track my movements in space. It's really, really hard to drive if you can't track your movements in space or the movements of other cars or people. I have like tunnel vision, so I can't see if somebody could be standing right next to me and I wouldn't see them sometimes, and I can't tell time. It plays havoc with my ability to be financially successful. However, what I did was I overcompensated like hell, much like Tom Sullivan. I told Tom Sullivan, I was like, I have a learning disability. He said, that's awesome. And this is the guy who was, he was recurring. And if people want to look him up on Wikipedia, Tom Sullivan, the guy, and I edited his book, Seeing Lessons, 14 life lessons I've learned along the way. So I highly recommend. It was blurred by people like Betty White and the chairman of the Coors Brewing Company, and Jack Nicklaus, who is the great golfer, right? And I was a great good fortune. So I also so in terms of overcompensation, I work 24 hours a day. I am I'm a compulsive workaholic. I do interviews with people, and more recently, Alea and I started doing what we call the Small Bear and Pickles show. There's a whole origin story to the Small Bear and Pickles, but so going back to being a music journalist, and so like I said, I interviewed Roz Williams from Christian Death. I interviewed people like Jeton Damone, who was also in Christian Death, and did some solo albums, duets with Roz, and as well as writers such as Lucy Taylor, Poppy Z. Bright, now Billy Martin, the transgender horror icon, and Craig Spector, who's one of the people who created the splatterpunk genre, who put me on to a woman named Krista Faust, who at that point was living with David J. Scow, who's another one of the very important people who created splatterpunk, which was an outgrowth of cyberpunk. And he and a guy named John Shirley wrote the movie The Crow. So and I was very fortunate to be in those circles where I could meet these people and talk with these people, and so that led to my reaching out to Poppy Z. Bright, Billy Martin now, and sort of having some phone calls, long conversations. I met her at that's the appropriate gender for Poppy Z. Bright at the time. I met her at the World Horror Convention in 1995, which took place in Atlanta, Georgia. I also met for the first time our mutual friend, Kathleen R. Kiernan, who is also in the William S. Burroughs Tribute Anthology, as well as the Bauhaus Tribute Anthology. And we found a lot of common ground as far as our interest in William S. Burroughs, transgressive literature, and Bauhaus. Being huge fans of Bauhaus, also I think we're all nerds. Like, Kathleen she's Irish. Okay, she was born in Dublin, and she lives in Alabama now, and she is a vertebrate paleontologist, which is absolutely fascinating, right? She worked with dinosaurs. I always wanted to be when I was a kid. I was so into dinosaurs, and I know Alea here, Pickles, is really into dinosaurs. Where dinosaurs are legitimately fascinating. And so my parents took me to UC Berkeley, where my great grandfather had taught for 23 years, and produced a number of PhDs, including the state historian of California. And so we have a whole legacy with UC Berkeley, right? And my dad was also a graduate, as well as being a graduate, an alumnus of Yale University, where he studied with Harold Bloom, and he learned English literature and Chaucer and Shakespeare, Milton, from Harold Bloom, the Dean of American Literary Criticism, as well as studying drawing with the founder of Bauhaus, the art school, Joseph Albers. So you want to talk about a legacy, right? I mean, where obviously where Bauhaus gets its name. And so I was writing for, back in the 90s when I really was cranking it up. I wanted so badly. You have to, and this is for the viewers, if you're coming up, I'm 58 years old. I just turned 58 in this past Halloween. If you want to do something, it's going to take, like my friend Lemmy, or actually he with AC/DC, he did a version of, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. And that's what I'm telling you. It's a long way to the top, and you have to be willing to pay your dues. It's like Snoop Dogg says, right? You have to pay the cost to be the boss. And once you're there, then it's still, people will try to kill you, will threaten your life. And that's happened on more than one occasion. And you just have to say, okay, well, but the other side of it is being able to work with people like our friend, our beautiful, incredible friend, Carrie Lee Crome, who we're working with on 3 books. So, so I guess we'll start with talking about the Bauhaus book, and I want to turn it over to Pickles to tell a little bit more about some of the people we're working with in terms of, it's called White on Weight, a literary tribute to Bauhaus. Where do we start, right? Because it's all good, all goodness.
Yeah.
So how would you describe some of the work you feature? I'll ask both of you this.
Yeah.
Some of the work you feature in and especially in these music anthologies. I'm really curious how someone contribute a musician. Do they write on the songs? Do they write on the musician? How does that work?
I'm not.
And there's a cat.
Yeah, there's a cat.
That's exactly.
It's a guest cat.
So
he didn't
no
write.
problem.
He didn't write anything, but he likes to get his paws in there.
So I'm not sure I understood the question, Dustin.
I'm asking how the writers you feature in each of these anthologies.
Right. Yeah.
especially the music anthologies.
Yeah.
Are they? How do you write? Like, is it like a poem or an essay or tribute, thought on the individual musicians, the bands? How do people tribute through their artwork or their work in written work to these different musicians in these anthologies? Because they're tribute volume.
Yeah, it's a really, really great question, and it's it goes to the heart of what makes Nocturnicorn Books different from any other publisher. And it ties back into my background as a music journalist, because as Carrie Crome said, she said that I think like a musician, which is one of the greatest compliments that I've ever received. She wrote the song. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Runaways. She created the Runaways. She was the founder of the Runaways, along with Joan Jett. But she was really it. And she wrote most of the songs on the first Runaways album, including California Paradise, which you probably heard if you've seen the movie, or if anybody has seen, listen to the compilations from Mercury Records, or the Queens of Noise album. There's the second album with, and then at some point Sherry Curry left the band, and then they went on. They had Joan Jett as the lead singer, and so I've always been into music, and music has saved my life, and I've had the great good fortune of being able to tell people like Lemmy Kilmister, Ronnie James Dio, Bruce Dickinson, and even the guy who directed Halloween, John Carpenter, who also composes all this, most of the music for his his movies, as well as Claudio Simonetti, who composed the score with Goblin for Suspiria, and he's the primary composer for Dario Argento, and he did the soundtrack to Demoni as well, which was actually Lamberto Bava, but is produced by Dario Argento. And just so to your question, Dustin, it's a matter of not only just doing a story or a poem or something that is inspired by. And there's been some really good anthologies, like my friend Chris Thompson put out a couple of anthologies that were sort of an homage to David Bowie. But well, actually, I'm trying to process multiple things at the same time, because there's a lot of things of developing breaking news as far as the anthologies are going to go. So I was talking to Ethan Maroulis this morning. Ethan Maroulis, I'm not sure if you're aware of his work, but he was the vocalist and the songwriter for a band called Spawn Ranch, which is a very iconic sort of gothic industrial band. And they did, their drummer at one point was David Glass from Christian Death. They also did a collaboration with David J. Haskins from Bauhaus. And so so maybe I'll just talk about David J. Haskins for a second. Shout out to David J. Haskins, right? So, right? Bela Lugosi's dead, right? Undead. Right? Yeah, that guy. And I just sent off a copy of The Doom Hippies, as well as Thunderstruck to Mr. David J. Haskins. And how I got in touch with David J. Haskins is I knew he was a huge fan of William S. Burroughs, and that he'd done some cut-ups, and he collaborates with the guy who's considered the poet laureate of England, Jeremy Reed. So I'm also a friend of Jeremy Reed, and and also I'd like to give a shout out to David Noon, who's also a very good poet, and he's also in 2 of the books, including Junk Merchants and We Are Gregor, a Disability Rights Anthology. David Noon was the guy who sort of he didn't put me in touch with David J. Haskins. I did that independently. And so I reached out to David J. Haskins through his website, and I asked if he would be interested in contributing to a William S. Burroughs tribute anthology. Within 48 hours, he sent me back an original poem called El Hombre Invisible, which was based on the tragic incident in which William S. Burroughs shot to death his wife, Joan Vollmer Burroughs, in a sort of a recreation of the William Tell, whatever that, it was a sort of a psychodrama or whatever, and it went, disastrously wrong. It was very, very tragic. And William S. Burroughs shot his wife, killed his wife, Joan Vollmer Burroughs. And he attributed that one incident to basically, he spent the rest of his career trying to purge himself of that trauma and try to understand what happened. And so this poem, I will read just the first stanza of it because it's very interesting. It goes directly to your question. Okay. How do you do a tribute to somebody who's so iconic as William S. Burroughs? Nobody can really recreate his style. Many have tried, and there are numerous people who get it so close, like Jerry Stahl, the guy who wrote Perv and Permanent Midnight, is extremely good. But he's not, I don't think even Jerry Stahl is trying to do Burroughs. He's trying to do himself. Dennis Cooper is very, very close to William S. Burroughs as far as his themes and topics, but he's not trying to do Burroughs. He's trying to do himself. And this is a sort of, I guess you could call it a cover version of William S. Burroughs. It's called El Hombre Invisible for Joan Vollmer Burroughs by David J. Haskins. On Monterey, Mexico City, the first bolt hole. Now, I'm sorry, I was an English professor, so it's just like occupational hazard or whatever. It's just like wanting to explain these things. So for your viewers, bolt hole is a play on words, right? So he's fleeing, right? So it's a bolt hole, right? It's a little joke. I'm such a nerd. Okay, so Burroughs fleeing in the opposite direction from he's just shot his wife. It's really dark, actually, but it's funny too. Yeah. Like Burroughs, right? In the Burroughs fleeing in the opposite direction to that of the trajectory of the bullet, which penetrated his wife's skull.
Yeah.
William Tell. Never played that game before. Probably won't play it again. He says in that voice as dry as desert dust. And I'll just read the next stanza. Okay, so for your viewers out there, if you were a fan of Bauhaus and if you're a fan of the song Bela Lugosi's Dead, we've all heard it, right? It's probably one of the most famous songs in the history of music. And then there's those lines, almost giving it away, okay? White on white, translucent black capes back on the rack. Bela Lugosi's dead. Okay, so this is the second stanza of El Hombre Invisible. in his beat up travel case, 2 suits, one brown, one gray. You can kind of hear that, right? A
Yep.
raincoat, 3 ties, 3 shirts, right? It's got the same rhythm, right?
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
check this out: 2 white, 1 black, white on white, translucent black cake, right? It's an Easter egg. I just spoiled it for you. But now for the readers, when this comes out in about 2 weeks, you'll say, "Oh my gosh, that was some shenanigans." I mean, he just inserted this little Easter egg to his one of the most famous songs in the history of music. A dog-eared copy of Celine's Journey to the End of the Night, which is also a reference to, of course, the song by The Doors, which also references William Blake.
End of the night.
And that is a real nice hidden Easter egg. And so that's another level, right? If you're a student of literature, if you're a fan of The Doors, you can appreciate that. That's very subtle, right? If I hadn't said that, well, but my dad studied with Harold Bloom, right? So who was one of the people who created deconstruction. And so that's one of the things where you don't just look at the surface, you know what the text is telling you. You sort of transcend those sort of binaries, the binary opposites. And this is really also because David J. Haskins is a very spiritual guy, right? As he's a student of sort of like the Paramahamsa Yogananda, and he's involved with he lives quite close actually to the Transcendental Meditation Center in LA. He actually lives in a Gothic castle in LA, which is why I just sent to the Doom hippies and the Thunderstruck. And so there's all these layers. And he says, okay, a cutthroat razor, right? A deck of tarot cards, his works, the gun. And so you notice now that I've said it and I pointed that out, you can't help but hear, right? 3 ties, 3 shirts, right? Dum, 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 dum. And that is very much intentional. That is why I believe that this book and all our books are going to be studied in literature courses in the future. I really do. And so that is a great example. What Carrie Crome did with her, she wrote essentially a Bauhaus song that was not written by Bauhaus for White on White. It's called North of No North. And it's, I wish I'd had the foresight to bring up the document. But anyway, people will read that and be blown away by how good it is. Well, this is the woman who wrote Waiting for the Night, okay? And Secrets and all those other songs, all those other amazing songs. California Paradise, you really listen to it. It's
Right.
not just a pop song, right? Turn up the radio, hear the rock and roll. Malibu shines like summer gold, right? Malibu shines like summer gold. That's like Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen would write that, or Allen Ginsberg. That is beautiful, and it's or Lou Reed, right? It's so compressed. It's so Malibu shines like summer gold. Like the whole idea of writing a poem is to, like what T.S. Eliot talked about, the objective correlative. Objective correlative is this complete opposite of Instagram poetry, folks. For your young ones out there who thinks that it's all about just saying, I'm really fucking depressed and I want to kill myself, but I'm bummed, but I just did some drugs. Or if they think they want to be like Charles Bukowski, I just took a beer, shit, right? Well, I just, that's actually a kind of a line from Bukowski. You know how hard Bukowski worked? He worked for his ass off for years. he was a complete failure. He was a bum. He bummed around the country in places like New Orleans and Philadelphia, and he was just like, he would take odd jobs and he would just like suck at them, and then he would quit. He would make enough money to get his room at a boarding house for the night, and he would drink all night. Finally, and type his poems. Right, he finally got a job at the post office, which made him incredibly miserable. Which he went on and wrote the novel Post Office, which began. The first line is it began with a mistake, and so I think again I'm emphasizing for you young folks out there, it's not about it's not about your ignorant peers saying that you're hot shit, right? It's about posterity, and so that's a really long-winded answer to your question, but it's all about not just sort of taking a cue from, okay, so writing, it's not just writing a story about a vampire, somewhat like Dracula that lives in a castle and maybe smokes weed, and and then there's some big titty goth chicks there, and that they all have incredibly transgressive sex, and it's more about, well, you can still have amazing fun and it can still be art. Like Carrie is one of the rudest, raunchiest, politically incorrect people that I've ever met in my life. She herself describes her like as having the mentality of a 12-year-old boy. So that's a very long-winded response. Now I want to turn this over to Pickles, because Pickles did something amazing and very, very similar along the lines of what we're talking about. But I've been embattled, and I've been through so much heinous shit with people are jealous of me. Well, I don't blame them. I would be jealous of me, but I worked for it, right? But Pickles wrote, she could see how I was on the struggle bus, and she wrote me a battle rap called Blood Red, and take it away, Pickles.
Oh, okay. I wrote him a rap because it was just he was having a rough day, and I'm not even entirely sure what it was that went wrong that day, but it was just I felt like inclined to I wanted to write something to let him know that he had a friend that cared, and I had stumbled across, he had played Bela Lugosi's Dead. He put it on his Facebook, and I saw it, and it was like all of a sudden all these memories came flooding back to me, because it was like a lost song. I don't know if, I'm sure other people have experienced this, where you've heard a song before, but you can't remember where and when you heard it, but it's like a lost song that gets lost in the memory files of your head, and you can't remember where it came from. But well, Alex had this song posted on his Facebook, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is all coming back to me. Like the whole rhythm of Bela Lugosi's Dead, it just hit me in a way that I was like, I have to write something. And since I knew he was having a hard day, I started writing Blood Red, which is, I mean, the line that Alex likes to quote is, "No bitch, we ain't dead yet."
Dead yet.
And this is probably like my most vulgar thing that I've written so far. And I've written some vulgar stuff, but the amount of times I put the word bitch into the lyrics is new for me. But he liked it so much, and he still likes it, and I don't know. I was inspired by the song Bela Lugosi's Dead, and I wanted to just show solidarity, and it was fun to write. And then also, like, it got me back into writing, because I had been in like a creative rut for years. Well, see, I took care of my mom for 12 years while she was sick, and then and then she ended up getting lung cancer. My sister took care of her also for a few years, and so we all took care of her, me, my sister, and my brother. Everyone, we did our best to take care of her during that time. But it was like, I don't know, I like meeting Alex and getting to get my work out there, because I had not written in so long, and I was at a point in life where I was so burnt out that I didn't think my writing was going to ever go
Oh my
anywhere.
God. Oh my God.
Yeah, and then
Speak of the devil. No, Carrie Chrome just messaged me. She
oh,
always does
cool.
this.
So, once that clicked with me and I started writing it, it just kind of poured out, and then I slowly got back into writing again, which is awesome. I'm really happy to be part of Nocturnicorn Books, and happy to meet all of these great other authors that I get to work with now. So even if you're like, it doesn't matter what age you are, like if you're poor, if you're struggling, if you have a disability, if you're older, if you're younger, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've been through, you've been through the ringer, like all of us. I think all of us have been through the ringer in life, and yet we're finding ways to come out ahead. I think that's, I think that you just don't give up. Just don't give up. That would be my takeaway from that.
Yeah.
Keep going with it. Don't think that your art.
We have about 4 minutes left of the show, and do you want to say anything at the end here, either of you guys?
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we're
Pickles,
4 minutes left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pickles, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't really. I think I said all I needed to say is just don't give up and stick with it.
Yeah. One of the things. We have the range of ages in our anthologies is from like 15 years old to 77. Actually, Maxim Jakubowski is 80. He was the one of the editors with Grove Press, and he's in the Junk Merchants too. So I just want to say, I want to give a shout out to David J. Haskins, Jeribo, Carrie Lee Chrome, Billy Martin, Kathleen R. Kiernan, and Michelle Fairchild, John Palisano, who's our great friend who just sent me, who's the Bram Stoker award-winning author, works with Ridley Scott. He just sent me a story for the Bauhaus book. The next book that is coming out this month, within the month, is The Junk Merchants 2, a literary tribute to William S. Burroughs. It contains original pieces by Carrie Lee Chrome. You won't find it anywhere else. Original poem by David J. Haskins, who wrote Bela Lugosi's Dead and founded Bauhaus and Love and Rockets. Introduction by Poppy Z. Bright. And that's it. So that's all the time we have. Jarbo of Swans is in the book. It's a monster, and we're loving life. Yeah, we're loving life. And also Thunderstruck, a dark poetry collection, which I have to promote this one, which we wrote with our lovely friend Sandy DeLuca. Pickles and I wrote this book. And a shout out to Sandy DeLuca. She's been having some health problems, so praying for her recovery, speedy recovery. Sandy, we love you so much. And just a big thank you to my parents, Stephen M. Johnson and Beatrice Johnson, for always having them back, for Alea's wonderful friends and her boyfriend Mike and her dad, and all the people in her life, everybody who supported Nocturnicorn Books over the years, all of her contributors, and we love you so much. Just Ellen Mabey, okay, Ellen, shout out to Ellen Mabey, Gemma Files, Christy Nogle, there's too many people
I know.
to really there's it's just an embarrassment of riches. So we love you so much. Thank you. And
thank you for having us, Dustin.
Thank you for having us, Dustin. Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's wonderful to talk to you and listen to you discuss these anthologies. I advise people to check them out. And remember, it's a fine day to get your work out there writing and publishing and finding your own little niche and your own community. So I hope everyone out there who is viewing today goes out there and finds where their community is and definitely gets their writing done. So as I say at the end of every program, get to writing. Thank you so much for viewing.
Awesome. Thank you
so much.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot.